Hello, my name is Ben Bowater. I'm one of the pastors at RedArrow Ministries in Southwest Michigan. I've written a few things I want to share with you. To my family, my church, my pastoral colleagues, as well as my friends in both education and law enforcement, I wanted to share with you some of the important lessons that I've learned during my time away. In Psalm 121 we read, "I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, maker of heaven and earth." I came to these mountains to seek help from the Lord so that I could try to find some longevity in ministry. After several traumatic incidents and betrayals, I realized that I had lost much of the resiliency that I often encourage others to have. As I shared with various mentors the effects of years of accumulated pain, I knew I needed to get some help. After just 2 sessions with a local therapist, he asked me if I was familiar with the parable of the sower in Matthew 13. He asked what percentage of people received the seed, in that case referring to the Word of God from Jesus' preaching. I responded by saying only 25% of people actually bear fruit. Leaning in closer, he asked me, "Did you really think that you can have a better batting average than Jesus?" Surprised, I responded, "Well, yes I did." What I've come to realize is that in my pride and arrogance, I truly thought that if I gave the Lord my very best effort and literally poured out my life as an offering to the people around me, I would have a better result than just 1/4. So the first step in my healing process has begun to redefine what success and failure looks like. Because while my wife Maria explained to the elders some reasons why I needed to come to these mountains, she was reminded of a time when she was in the mission field, very sick in a Mexican hospital. She was led to 1 Peter 4:12, saying, "Dear friends, do not be surprised at the fiery ordeal that has come on you to test you, as though something strange were happening to you." With tears she added, "Yet for Ben, he is surprised every single time." And so coming to these mountains, my assigned therapist pointed out how for over many years I've walked through repeated types of trauma bonding, most often witnessed in abusive relationships. For example, take our wonderful men and women in law enforcement. Every day they put on a uniform with a deep desire to serve their community, to be a help for those in need. So imagine dispatch receives a 911 call about a man physically assaulting his girlfriend. Clearly, a rescuer is needed. This officer gets the call, arrives at the scene with the desire to help, and yet quickly, that officer becomes a victim when the same person who made the call for help gets very upset, even starts filming the incident as the assailant is being arrested. God forbid things ever escalate. And yet later, that same officer who entered into the situation just to help can quickly become the villain, leveled with all sorts of false accusations. Can you see why they may be hesitant to enter into a no-win situation like that? Or even worse, just choose to leave that profession? That toxic cycle of rescuer to victim to villain is something more and more people are experiencing with alarming frequency. For pastors, people of all walks of life come into the church looking to be rescued in some way, or at least wanting to improve their lives. Yet the very moment that pastor or church leader encourages that person to seek God's very best for their lives, or perhaps even change some of their wicked ways, that same pastor becomes the victim of insults and perhaps even emotional abuse. Even if we had the opportunity to try and seek out reconciliation, that same person who originally came to church seeking help and guidance soon walks away and slanders that ministry leader like they are some kind of villain. Some will say, "Well, Ben, that's just the nature of ministry," or "This is all because of the pandemic." As my wife first pointed out years ago, it wasn't the pandemic that caused these issues, it only exposed them. I would argue the pandemic amplified these issues. Why? Because hurting people hurt others. So what have I learned in these past 2 weeks up in the mountains? I think a better way of asking that question is, how do I prevent the further wounding of my soul? If you know me, regardless of what role I find myself, I've always entered into situations with a deep longing to help others. In many cases, I could clearly see a train wreck that is about to occur in someone's life. So I do everything I can to try and prevent that wreck from occurring, even at great cost to myself. What I've learned is that I need to remind myself daily that I am not God. No matter what I do, sometimes a wreck is going to happen, and people will get hurt. Sometimes even lives will be lost. When we're in a SISM debrief for first responders, as part of the reaction phase, we sometimes ask them a very important question. If you could change one thing, but not change the outcome, what would it be? Whether you're a pastor, a teacher, a first responder, a nurse, or really anyone that is called to serve others, what we must ask ourselves is whether we did our very best to make that person's life better. Even if it was only for a short time, perhaps even fleeting moments. Did we use that precious time that we were given to fully invest in that person's life? If we could truly say yes, then we did exactly what God asked of us, regardless of the outcome. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you soon.